Well, it's funny you say that because when you listen to a lot of the older wrestlers, they often talk about the old school mentality versus the new school mentality. You say big guys back in the day, they can do some of the high flying stuff, but they were more you're supposed to be the intimidating brute, the monster, the ground and pound type of guy. And then, like you said, occasionally Taker, he'd do what's that, the old school, he'd do a dive over the top rope, but it wouldn't happen often. So how do you, especially if you're a heel or a baby face, how do you like, okay, I'm this 6 foot, whatever big guy, I can do these moves, but how do you keep the integrity of the character and how do you balance that between let's do it for a pop because I know it'll get a reaction, or let's not do it because it's really not needed? How do you balance that out?
It's very situational. A lot of people, I hear that. It's funny that you mentioned the old school versus new school mentality. And I bring this up a lot in a lot of the seminars that I do and a lot of the training that I do. I'm actually a trainer at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy, which I was talking about earlier. Um, and because everything that I teach and talk about and train is all based in a lot of fundamentals and sort of that quote unquote old school mentality.
Yeah, right.
The part of it that I never adhered to and the part of it that I never accepted was that it had to be one or the other, right? Which is what even the way you phrased it, you said old school versus new school. I don't feel like it has to be that. I feel like there's room for both, right? And that's the part of it that always that I never quite understood was that, oh, you either have to do like this less is more sort of thing, or you need to be this spot guy who's doing all sorts of flips and dives and stuff. I feel like you can do both. I feel like you can work a grounded story, have intent facials, do size differentials, have great psychology, and do cool moves, and do cool flips, and do interesting stuff when the time calls for it, right? I'm not doing flips and doing things just for the sake of getting a pop. I like to build the things and have proper psychology and make it make sense. But the reality of the situation is people think that of me. Like I see this a lot. I saw it today. I saw someone say something to the effect of, I would have been better off if I stayed grounded, if I played to my size more. I think people have this misconception of me that I'm always flying all over the place and I'm always doing these sort of high flying moves because they don't consume me fully as a professional wrestler. They don't watch all of my matches like I do. They see a GIF, and the reality of the GIF is that you're always going to get the biggest move of the match. You're always going to get the most spectacular thing, and then all they see of me is these GIFs, and they go, "Oh, he's just jumping all over the place. He's flying. He's doing these crazy moves. He's doing these crazy no sells." The reality is it I'm not doing it that often. That's one takeover match, and it's the end of a takeover match, that had a lot of groundwork and storytelling and psychology and things like that. So the reality of the situation is that I wrestled as T-Bar for 2 years. I didn't do one dive. I didn't do one flip. I didn't do one thing, because my whole point of that was I'm a heel who's going to get heat and I'm going to stay grounded. I gained like 30 pounds. I wanted to be a completely different presentation. And a lot of that was wrestling toward my audience. And my audience at that point was Vince McMahon. So I was trying to change my style to adhere to my audience. And the reality of that is that nobody cared. Nobody was like, nobody was like talking about me or talking about my great matches or doing this or doing that because it didn't exist. So when people say, oh, he would have been better off being grounded and doing this and doing that, probably not, because ultimately it comes down to the taste of the booker and whoever's pushing you or not pushing you or whatever. And I was just trying to fit into that mold of the person who was in charge of my career at that point, because that became my audience. And the reality of that situation is that no one was hearing about it and hearing about these matches because the cool moves and the high flying spots and stuff weren't happening. So, and this, I could talk about this all day, right? Because this is the premise of promos and Twitter stuff and everything about pro wrestling is if you're not polarizing, then you just don't exist. Nobody's hearing about you. Nobody's talking about you unless you're getting pushed, right? So the fact of the matter is that for people who aren't getting these pushes and aren't in the main event title scenes and stuff, people see those people who are having success and go, oh, well, they're not doing X, Y, and Z. They're getting over because of this, and they're getting over because of that. The reality is the guys who aren't in those scenes and aren't polarizing and stuff, you're just not thinking about them and not talking about them. So it's like out of sight, out of mind, and that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing to be forgotten in the pro wrestling industry. So right. So I've already rambled about this too much.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.